So you know how we're constantly hearing about these amazing advancements in AI, the ones that can see now?
Yeah, understand images like GPT-4, Gemini, Claude 3.5, 3.7.
Exactly. They're getting incredibly good, almost uncanny sometimes, telling you what's in a picture.
Better than us sometimes, maybe.
Might be. Well, today we're doing a deep dive into a brand new academic paper, and get this, it suggests these apparently rock-solid vision models might be easier to fool than we think.
That's right. These LVLMs, large vision language models, they're everywhere now, aren't they? Powering image captions, visual Q&A.
All sorts of things.
But yeah, you might think they're pretty secure. This research, though, introduces a surprisingly, almost deceptively simple way to create adversarial attacks.
Adversarial attacks.
Okay.
So that's like subtly tweaking an image.
Exactly. You change it just slightly, often imperceptibly to us, but the AI sees it and completely misunderstands what's there.
And the success rate you mentioned.
Get this on some of the most advanced, commercial black box models, over 90%.
Over 90%. That's, wow. So for everyone listening, that's like you showed a picture of a cat, tweak a few pixels we barely notice, and 9 times out of 10, this super smart AI confidently says, oh, that's a dog, or something completely off.
Pretty much, yeah. And what's really key here is the black box part.
Right. They didn't need to peek inside the model.
Nope. They treated it like a sealed box, couldn't see the internal workings, the architecture, nothing. And they still managed to trick it consistently.
Okay, that's fascinating. So why did this method work so well when others maybe struggled with these newer AIs?
Well, that's actually a core part of the paper's contribution. The researchers looked at why previous attacks often failed against these really robust models.
What was the problem?
They found that older methods often added changes, perturbations, they call them, that didn't really carry any clear semantic meaning.
Semantic meaning. So like the changes didn't really relate to what was in the picture in a meaningful way.
Exactly. It was almost like adding random static or noise.
Yeah.
You might confuse the AI a bit, but you couldn't reliably make it see something specific that wasn't there.
Ah, okay.
So this new paper, they hypothesized and then showed that to really fool these advanced LVLMs, you need to target the meaning the AI is trying to extract. You have to encode specific but wrong semantic details.
So it's more targeted misinformation, visually speaking.
Precisely. And their method, they call it M-attack. It focuses on encoding these misleading semantic details within specific localized parts of the image.
Localized parts. Okay, not just a general change across the whole thing. Let's dig into the paper properly then. What did they lay out?
Sure. So the paper kicks off, as you'd expect, highlighting how common these commercial LVLMs are becoming and, the security risks that come with that.
It makes sense.
They talk about existing transfer-based attacks. That's where you design an attack on one model you can access, maybe an open source one.
And hope it works on the closed-off commercial one.
Right. And they point out these are really struggling against the latest, toughest black box systems. The core idea, their hypothesis, was that if you focus the attack on the visual details linked to the core semantic objects in an image.
What the AI is actually looking for to understand the scene.
Exactly. If you manipulate those details carefully, you can create attacks that are much better at transferring between different models, even the black box ones.
So it's like finding the AI's visual pressure points and pushing there.
That's a good way to put it. So they introduce M-attack. The process involves randomly cropping small sections of the original image.
Okay.
Adjusting their size and shape a bit, resizing them, and then this is key, aligning them in the embedding space with the target image.
Embedding space,
Yeah.
that abstract representation the AI uses.
Yep. They use other accessible white box models like CLIP variants to help with this alignment. And they also introduced a new metric to measure success.
Oh yeah, you mentioned that, KMR score.
KMR score, keyword matching rate. It's meant to be more objective than just asking, did it get it wrong? It checks if the AI's wrong description actually includes the specific keywords the attacker intended.
That does sound more rigorous. Like, did it just fail randomly or did it fail in the way you wanted it to fail?
Exactly. So their main contributions are, 1, observing that failed attacks often have these uniform, meaningless perturbations. 2, showing this local semantic encoding works really well. And 3, introducing KMR score.
Got it. And what did they learn from specifically analyzing the failed attacks? You mentioned uniform noise.
Right. 2 key insights there. First, looking at the failed adversarial images, the changes often look like, almost like static, spread evenly. No clear structure the AI could misinterpret meaningfully. Think blurry, not deceptive.
Okay, so just confusing, not misleading in a specific direction.
Pretty much. And the second insight came from the responses these failed attacks got from the big black box models.
What happened there?
Often the models would just give vague, evasive answers. Things like, the image is unclear, or I cannot determine the content, or I'm not sure.
Ah, so the AI knew something is off, but it wasn't confidently misidentifying it. It was hedging its bets.
Exactly. It sensed the manipulation, but wasn't fooled into adopting the specific wrong interpretation.
Which suggests what?
It suggests you need both things. You need that overall semantic alignment, the gist of the wrong idea, and you need the fine-grained visual details within the image locally to really sell that wrong idea to the AI. Just matching in the abstract embedding space isn't enough for these sophisticated models.
Okay, so that sets the stage for MATAC. How does it actually do this local refinement? Walk us through the method a bit more.
Sure. The MATAC framework, it's got two main parts that work together. There's local matching, or LM, which can be local to local or local to global matching. And then there's model ensemble, ENS.
Let's start with LM, the local matching.
Okay, so the core idea is refining the semantics of the changes locally. They randomly crop small patches from the source image, the one they want to attack.
Right.
They control the size and aspect ratio of these crops.
Right.
Then they resize these patches and align them with corresponding parts of a target image, the image representing what they want the AI to think it sees in the embedding space. Or sometimes they align a local patch from the source with the entire target image's embedding.
So they're essentially trying to make small parts of the original image feel like parts of the target image in AI terms.
That's a good way to think about it. They use math, specifically cosine similarity in the embedding space, calculated using their ensemble of white box models to guide this process. This helps extract the relevant semantic details from the target and infuse them into the source image's patches.
And using an ensemble of multiple white box models helps how?
It does two things. First, it helps capture semantics that are likely to be shared across different models, making the attack more transferable to the unknown black box target.
Right.
Second, different models perceive things differently. Some are better at fine details, others at overall structure. Using an ensemble captures a richer mix of these perspectives.
Okay, so it makes the attack more robust and generalizable.
Exactly. And the way they aggregate these local changes back onto the source image is important too. By using overlapping crops, they maintain some semantic consistency where the crops overlap.
Right.
But they also introduce diverse misleading details from the non-overlapping parts. It strikes a balance. And they found this random cropping within a specific size range, like between 50% and 100% of the image dimension for the crop size, was particularly effective for this local matching.
It sounds complex, but also quite elegant in a way, using randomness and ensembles to create targeted deception.
It is, and then they use a standard optimization method, like IFGSM, to actually generate the final pixel changes based on these aligned local semantics.
Okay, so theory sounds good. What about the actual tests? Who are the victims?
The victim models, they went after the big names. Multiple GPT-4 versions, including 4.5, 4.0, and a newer O1, Claude 3.5 and 3.7 Sonnet, plus the thinking variants, and Gemini 2.0 Flash and Thinking, a real lineup of state-of-the-art commercial LVLMs.
A proper stress test. And the data set.
They used the NIPS 2017 adversarial data set, which is pretty standard for this kind of work. Yeah. Surrogate models were mostly CLIP variants, as we mentioned, and they compared MATAC against several other recent transfer attack methods like attack VLM, SSA, CWA, any attack, and ADIF-VLM.
So a fair fight against the reigning champs?
Yep. Standard setup, clear comparisons. They set a typical perturbation budget, how much they're allowed to change the image, and ran the optimization for a set number of steps.
And the results, how did MATAC stack up?
It pretty much dominated across the board, really, on almost all the target LVLMs, and using both KMR score and the standard attack success rate, ASR, which they measured using GPT-4 as a judge to compare caption similarity. MATAC significantly outperformed the baselines.
Significantly.
Yeah, especially with the KMR score. The gap was really noticeable at the stricter matching thresholds, showing MATAC was much better at inducing the specific intended misinterpretation, not just any wrong answer. The ASRs were often hitting those 90% plus figures we talked about, especially on the GPT models.
So it wasn't just wrong, it was confidently and specifically wrong in the way the attackers wanted.
That's the key takeaway. The models weren't just confused, they were confidently describing the wrong thing, often using the target keywords.
That's powerful. Did the ablation studies confirm the importance of the different parts, like the local matching and the ensemble?
Absolutely. The ablations were very clear. removing the local matching component and just doing global matching or using standard data augmentation instead, performance dropped sharply. The local approach was crucial.
Okay.
Similarly, taking out the model ensemble also caused a big hit to performance. The synergy between the local matching strategy and using that ensemble of diverse white box models seems really important for transferability.
So both pillars are necessary.
Seems so. They also check things like the perturbation budget. MATAC performed well across different levels of allowed distortion and, interestingly, often achieved better results with lower actual image changes compared to baselines, meaning it was more imperceptible.
More effective and stealthier.
Yeah. And it scaled well with more optimization steps, as you'd expect.
What about visuals? Did the MATAC images look less messed up?
Generally, yes. They included visual comparisons in the paper, and the images generated by MATAC often looked much closer to the originals compared to some baseline methods, which could sometimes introduce more obvious noise or artifacts. The MATAC changes seemed more subtle and semantically integrated.
And the reasoning models, you said they weren't necessarily tougher.
Right. They tested on models explicitly designed for reasoning tasks, like GPT-4, Claude 3.7 thinking, Gemini 2.0 thinking. And surprisingly, MATAC was still highly effective. It suggests that even if these models have advanced reasoning capabilities layered on top, their core visual understanding components might share the same vulnerabilities exploited by MATAC.
That's a really interesting finding. So, boiling it down, the big insight seems to be that fooling these advanced AIs is less about raw pixel noise and more about cleverly manipulating the meaning they extract, especially at a local level.
That's definitely the core message. It's about semantic manipulation, not just perceptual disruption. And the effectiveness of relatively simple ideas like random cropping, when used smartly with embedding, alignment, and ensembles, is quite striking.
And it really pushes us to think harder about evaluation, doesn't it? Not just right or wrong, but how it's wrong.
For sure. We need metrics like KMR score that capture the nature of the failure, especially for security assessments. Understanding why an attack works tells us much more about the model's weaknesses.
Okay, this paper definitely gives the ML community and anyone deploying these models a lot to chew on regarding robustness. Let's shift gears slightly to our novel notions segment. Based on this work, what new research ideas spring to mind?
Well, one idea, playing on this theme of subtle semantic manipulation, could be exploring what you might call semantic camouflage.
Semantic camouflage. How would that work?
Instead of forcing the AI to see something completely different, cat into dog, could you use similar local semantic encoding techniques to just subtly shift the interpretation towards something less harmful or less specific, making the manipulation incredibly hard to detect?
Like nudging its understanding.
Exactly. Maybe take a politically charged or sensitive image and subtly alter the local cues so an automated content filter reads it as innocuous or generic. Even if a human might still pick up on the original context, you'd be playing with those vague response regions the paper identified.
That sounds tricky, and the detection challenge would be immense.
It would. It raises really complex questions for content moderation and automated safety systems. It's pushing the boundary of adversarial manipulation into something much more nuanced.
Okay, that's one provocative idea. What else?
Another thought is about transferability, but not just between models, but between modalities.
Meaning?
Could this principle of local semantic encoding, targeted manipulation of meaning and local parts, work for, say, audio? Or even text itself?
Adversarial attacks on audio or LLMs using similar local principles.
Yeah. For text, maybe subtly altering key phrases or named entities within a paragraph locally while keeping the grammar intact to completely change the implied sentiment or factual claim in a way that fools an LLM.
Or for audio,
maybe localized changes to specific frequencies, formants, or phones within speech to make an audio model misinterpret a word or the speaker's emotional tone, again, without making it sound obviously garbled.
Interesting. Is this vulnerability to local semantic manipulation specific to vision, or is it maybe a more fundamental trait of these large, complex models?
That's the big question, isn't it? Exploring that could tell us a lot about how these models fundamentally represent and process information across different data types. You could even imagine cross-modal attacks.
Where tweaking an image subtly affects how the model interprets the accompanying audio.
Potentially, yeah. If the models truly integrate modalities, then vulnerabilities might cross over too.
Both of those are really fascinating research avenues stemming from this core idea of local semantic targeting.
Definitely. And of course, just to be clear, these novel notions are speculative, food for thought. The actual feasibility, the ethics, that all needs careful investigation.
Naturally. But this paper on M-Attack has undeniably opened up a new perspective on the vulnerabilities of even our most advanced vision language models. The effectiveness of their relatively simple, semantically driven approach is, well, quite humbling in a way.
It really is. It shows there's still so much we need to understand about how these models perceive the world and how that perception can be manipulated.
For anyone listening who wants the full technical breakdown, we've linked the paper in the description. It's a compelling read. It definitely leaves you thinking about the future of AI security, this constant arms race between building more capable models and finding new ways to challenge their robustness.
A race that's clearly far from over.
Indeed. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive today.